This is Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate, the podcast where we cover home buying, home selling, home improvement tips and ideas, market trends and developments, and investing in real estate. If you own real estate in the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, or want to own real estate here, then you're in the right place. Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate is hosted by Blake Watson, a real estate agent and investor in Tennessee and Georgia.
Welcome to Let's Talk Chattanooga Real Estate. I'm Blake Watson, your host. My guests today are Brooke Terrell. She's a realtor and property manager, and Andrea Moffett, also the owner and operator of PMI Chattanooga. They are also both Epique Realty agents, so it's great to have you here today. Welcome.
Thank you.
What is PMI Chattanooga, which you're both a part of?
PMI Chattanooga is a property management. We do rentals. We do real estate. We can manage your property from A to Z, full service. We offer maintenance. We find investment properties for a lot of our agents out of town. They buy sight unseen, so we're kind of their eyes and ears on the ground, making sure that they're investing in the right property and not just getting a property just to lease and not know what they're getting. Brooke's had a really great situation. She just sold a property to a great investor out in California, and she really helped her from A to Z, and I can let you talk a little bit about that, Brooke, but that's our main focus, is making sure that we are investing in our investors and their homes and making sure that they're making the most money and their properties being taken care of as well.
On this podcast, we do focus sometimes on real estate investing. And that's really why I wanted to talk with you guys today, because as an investor myself, I do manage some of my rental properties. I also do have some that are managed professionally. If someone wants to get into real estate investing, what would a property management company do for them?
Not every property management company is created equally.
True.
You really have to find the right fit for you. And sometimes that means dipping your toes in the water just a little bit. And sometimes you go with the wrong property management company, and then that just changes everything for you. But with PMI Chattanooga, we are a smaller property management company. We'd love to grow, but as of right now, we're able to have more of a relationship with our customers and our clients. And that goes with our investors. I know people's children. I know that their fathers have been in the hospital. I know their financials and things like that. And then I also know all the tenants because I collect rent, I lease to them. So we are very hands-on, and we're all about relationships. I get to know all of my investors, like what they like, what they don't like. I talk to them a lot, or as little as they like. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Instead, some are very involved and some aren't, and that's totally okay.
Andrea mentioned, Brooke, that you have a story about a California investor, or maybe this one isn't California. I don't know, but
yeah, it is.
Tell us the story, and this may help us understand what you do.
Yeah, of course. So back in February of this year, I had someone reach out to PMI Chattanooga about helping them rent their house, a brand new build they had just bought that they were going to self-manage, which is totally fine. We offer lease-only options, so that's what we decided was best for that client. Got to know them during the process, and we had a really good experience together. The house was leased, and it took a little bit longer than we liked, but it was like a really high rent, and sometimes that happens in the more A-class properties. It'll take a little bit longer to find that person who meets like the income requirements, because not everybody makes $10,000 a month.
Yeah,
right. We stayed connected. We came up with plans and strategies, and I really got to know like her personality, like very type A, like likes to be in the know. And some people aren't like that. Some people are like, here you go, have fun, I don't care, let me know when it's leased, whatever. And some people like to be really hands-on. So, and that was her. And I was like, that's totally fine. So we meshed well, and we got it leased. And then fast forward a couple months later, it was about May, I think. So 3 months later, She reached out to me. She said, hey, I'm looking to buy another property in Chattanooga, but I didn't really love my last realtor. Do you have any recommendations? And I was like, actually, yeah, girl. We had a phone call. She decided, yeah, you know what? I really want to work with you. I've worked with you before, so let's do it. And we just closed on the 6th on her, I think it was her 6th investment property. She has a few in some other states, and now she has 2 in Tennessee.
How about that?
Yeah, and she plans to buy another in the spring.
It sounds like what you are providing for this client, at least, is a very turnkey situation where you're helping her identify the property that she wants to buy, and then you're obviously helping her through the entire transaction, and then you're going to help with management.
Yeah, and it's a long game. It's not just a quick, like, I'm going to sell you this house and then see you later, and if you come back, you come back. If you don't, that's fine too. It's more of a, we have a relationship. I can't steer you wrong because I'll be responsible for that later. You know, I'm really going to have to be there to be like, oh yeah, that deck does need some work, so now I'm having to do the maintenance. Or when I could just like let her know before, while I'm on the property, like, hey, you may have to do something with that deck in the future. Yeah. We really look out for each other in that sense because I have to answer to them later. So
You want to make sure that they're going to be happy in the long term.
Yeah.
Because they're still going to be your client for a long time. Not only that, but it's just the right thing to do.
Right. It is, yeah. And we have a certain level of how we want our properties to look and like certain expectations for them. I always say, like, try to leave the property in a really great condition for the next tenant, because no matter how it is, you're going to always get it back like a little less than how you gave it to them. Like, you know what I mean? It's never going to be the same, and it's definitely not going to be better. So I always tell them, like, make sure it's nice when they move in. That way it'll be hopefully nice when you get it back.
Yeah, they kind of have expectations of what it's supposed to look like, right?
Yeah, of course. And you are protecting your investment and the longevity of it by keeping up with maintenance, you know, painting every couple of years, shampooing carpets, you know.
How long have you guys been doing this? It sounds like you've got quite a few years of experience here in Chattanooga.
A long time. I'll tell my age, but yes, I've been in property management 20 plus years, maybe 25 plus now. Started out in hotel management, went that route for many years, did a lot of build-ups on hotels and have a lot of renovation experience. So I eventually got into managing apartment communities and then went into regional manager for some large property management companies. So I have a very vast background in all kinds of income type properties. So I'm very familiar. And 5 years ago, I decided I'm going to buy my own company, you know, and purchase this franchise. And, you know, we've really worked hard, done well, and hoping to expand even more. But Brooke and I have been together for 10 years, I think.
Yeah.
She was one of my hires, and she was 18. Were you 18?
No.
20? She was young.
I think I was like barely 21.
She's a baby. She was a baby. But, yeah, we've kind of been together for a long time, so we bounce off each other and, you know, just continue to grow PMI Chattanooga and the real estate.
I can see that you guys enjoy working with each other. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's valuable. You can probably finish each other's sentences sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. We talk a lot. We'll be sending each other the same text. We actually show up to the office, and we don't plan it at all, but we will be matching for no reason. Like, same exact color, same exact day. And we're like, we got to stop doing this. It looks weird when we go out to lunch. Like, people are going to think that we coordinated this.
That's hilarious. Back to property management. When I talk to people who are looking at buying their first rental and they don't know what to do, some of the steps that would be involved in managing the property. And one of the things that everybody fears is the late night phone call for the toilet overflowing, water back up in the house. What would you say to someone who is concerned about how they would manage their property?
I mean, we have 24-hour maintenance services. We deal with it as it comes. Brooke's actually the go-to person on maintenance, and we have a great software system. We also have answering service that handles all maintenance. So if anything emergency comes in, they're going to call us in the middle of the night, and we're going to handle it, or, handle it the best way possible. If it can wait till it's not a very large expense on the owner, we're going to wait till morning to take care of that. But we do have a service that does answer calls, and if it's after hours. So we make sure we take care of the property because that's your investment. And, you have to provide that service for your tenant as well, just by law. And that's something that we try to instill in our owners, like you have to keep your property up to par just for your tenant because there are tenant laws. And that's something we also bring to the table, that we also know the laws for rentals. And, tenants have sometimes a lot more grace than maybe the owners think they should, but we do have to abide by those, and we try to do that. So
what are some other concerns that a potential investor might have?
Collecting rent is a big one, and we're very strict on our rental policies, and we found that just implementing the same structure every month, that you teach your tenant how to pay, and you teach them what's going to happen if they are late, or if you're going to be turned over to eviction. And we try to help, and Brooke's done many times, tried to find if everybody has a hard time once in a while, and we have contacts with some people that can help a tenant if they're coming across a bad way or they need some help. And we kind of know based on month by month, the same type of tenants if they're late, but there are some legitimate ones, and Brooke always tries to help.
There are a lot of churches and a lot of organizations in Chattanooga that do help with past due rent, and a lot of people just don't know about it. So I definitely tell anybody who is behind substantially, like when they're getting the notice of, hey, you may be evicted, that's when, unfortunately, it has to get to that point, but that's when these places can help and step in. And our concern, of course, is collecting rent, but also we're in the business of housing people. So it's a very delicate situation sometimes, and all we can do is, one, follow the law. We have to do that. And then we give everybody grace, and we show empathy. And I think those things are very important. But at the same time, we are able to, and this has taken many years, and I'm sure Andrea can agree, to kind of detach yourself from, I know this is somebody's home and somebody's family, but I also have to follow the law. So that's where we can kind of compartmentalize a little bit, where, say, like a self-managing owner would not be able to do. I've actually had to help owners come to us and say, hey, I've lowered the rent on monthly for these people because I don't want them to be homeless, but they're still not paying on time. Like, how can you help me? And I'm like, well, I can help you through the process. We can try to stick to it. We have regimens because we've done this a while. We've taken over many properties. So there's different things we can do for different situations, but it happens a lot is they're behind, they're not paying on time, they're going through this, and this. And while it's totally horrible, you can show empathy, but at the end of the day, for me, at least in a property management company, you have to follow the law, and we have to treat everybody the same. And sometimes that looks like I can't waive your late fee, because if I waive it for you, I have to waive it for everybody else, and nobody loves that. I don't love it. If I could waive it, I would, but I can't, because everybody has to be treated the same. And there are a multitude of reasons why somebody's late. So I think that is probably the scariest part, is when people don't pay the rent. And that's what's on the line.
It's also your money. Hard for an owner, if they're self-managing, that they may feel bad about it because it pulls at your heartstrings a lot.
Sure.
And then sometimes a tenant will take advantage of that, and they know that they're pulling at their heartstrings. And that's when we get a lot of some of our owners have come, and we've gotten them that way because their tenants just won't pay them, and they don't know how to go about it the right way. And sometimes it's easier to say, well, you got to deal with the management company now. You got to do what they say. I'm step back. I've hired somebody to handle this. So whatever they say goes. So it kind of makes it takes it off their shoulders.
Yeah. I mean, and it's hard for us too. Like there's sometimes like it's hard to sleep, or it'll wake you up in the night when you have to think about like going to court or like, something like that. But that's something that the owner doesn't have to do.
Yeah.
That's something you pay us for. And also just to note, our owners would never get a call in the middle of the night about a toilet because that is what you pay us for.
Yeah.
That's right.
Just so we're all clear. Like I would never call my owner about that. Like I'll take care of it.
It has to be a flood.
It would have to be like some serious, like we're going to have to call insurance. Like we got to get some pictures down
Fire.
here. Yeah. But like for toilet, we got it. You can keep sleeping.
Yeah, we got it. And we have a good group of vendors that work for us consistently. So
it's interesting. I'm just thinking about my own experience and the properties that I've managed and properties that I've also had professional management done. And I do agree that there is this benefit to being able to put a management company between you and the tenant. And it's not because tenants are not going to do well, but in some situations, it's just easier to be able to say, well, that's their decision. And, I've hired them to do this or whatever it may be. And,
that's the go-to response for our owners. Yeah.
I was thinking of all the things. I don't think I've ever had someone call me in the middle of the night for a toilet. I have had some hot water heaters kind of go out and start flooding. I've had fires. I've had cars go through houses. I've had deaths. These are all things that are just life. Just life, and people have to deal with it, Right. And as a property owner and as a landlord, I can see great benefits in me not having to deal with that and you just calling me the next day and saying, here's what happened last night.
Right. And if you want to grow your investment portfolio, it starts becoming too much for one person to manage. So a lot of times an investor will say, I want to manage myself. And then when they start buying, like maybe your client eventually will be going, man, this is too much and I'm out of state. And what's going to happen if I do have to go to eviction court? What's going to happen in these different situations? Do I want to deal with all that when I maybe have 10 properties? So it gets to be a little too much. So that's where we step in and take it off everybody's shoulders.
And some people look at their properties as a retirement plan.
Yes.
So they don't want to be involved. I know I wouldn't. I really don't think that I would if I was out of town or if it was my retirement plan. I would be like, here, I will pay the tax. You just handle it. You send me a check. We'll be fine. If something comes up, call me. Otherwise, try not to bother me. And some of our clients are like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's a great benefit. And I tell people that. I say, you've got a job. You're working. You're a dentist or whatever it may be. You've got a job. And you're doing that. So continue doing that. And let Brooke and Andrea take care of you, over at PMI Chattanooga.
I mean, it does make it easier as far as maintenance and, things that come up in emergencies when you do buy the right property. You know what I mean? So you really got to make sure you invest in a home that probably won't have a lot of maintenance issues. We can't plan for, sometimes something crazy will happen. But when you look at it, you want to say, okay, I'm not going to have to replace the water heater anytime soon. The HVAC's not really old. The roof was just replaced, and there are a lot of old homes in Chattanooga. So, and they'll be from like 65 to 80s to 2000s, they're out there. So you really got to look at all of that. What was done to the property? How was it kept up? Like, what year is it? You got to look at all those things and make sure that maybe you won't have a call in the middle of the night about the water heater. You know what I mean? Like, just looking at the age of it. I mean, things do happen.
Yeah, and another plus for using us as property management and as realtors is to be able to pull a rental range report. Are you getting the most for your money? Somebody that may not be into property management will be selling a property to an out-of-town buyer that just wants to sell a property. And if coming to us, we can say, that isn't really a bedroom. I don't think you can count that as 4, and I don't think that's going to bring you more rent. Or the area. We know the area. We know this Chattanooga area. I've lived here all my life. So we know the area, and just being able to educate the out-of-town investors on, is this property in the long term going to bring you the rent you need and also be able to increase in value? Because, we know downtown's building up. We know certain areas are building up. And we might just have better suggestions on what might be a good investment for them to where they get the rent they want. I mean, we have a great software that, bam, pulls it up in a second. So
you've got those tech tools that
we
you
have
use.
the tech tools, yeah. So we have great softwares and everything at our fingertips to be able to help in that process.
You mentioned, Brooke, a minute ago about having a lease option as one of your service options. Yeah. So it sounds like you have perhaps an array of services.
Yes, so PMI Chattanooga is a full-service property management company. So we lease the homes, and once we lease the homes, then we continue to manage the property. But we also have the option to lease only, is what we call it. And that is, if somebody wants to manage themselves, they just pay us to lease the property. So we would do all of the pictures, all of the marketing, and our marketing is pretty great. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to lie. We market, we do tours, we do self-access, or we do in-person tours. We put up signs. We do the lease agreement after the person has done a background and credit check. We make sure that all checks out, and then we put everything in a folder and we turn it over to the owner, and then they could manage it themselves if they wanted to, but they don't have to worry about doing all the social media, all of the pictures and the inquiries, because sometimes you can get like hundreds and thousands of inquiries on one property. So they don't have to worry about that at all. And then they just get it in a nice little bow. And
the screening's a big thing too.
Yeah.
A lot of, if they want to self-manage, we have all the tools that really digs into somebody's background and checks everything. And then we also check references. We check their job history or their current job. And I think that's a benefit too that we offer for a lease only. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, that background check and just tenant screening is extremely important. I always advise people the most important decision is probably not the property, it's who you're going to rent
Exactly.
to. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
And while we're on that topic, I would look at it as protecting myself against potential fair housing issues. Mm-hmm. So I would not personally, depending on how many properties I have and manage, I personally would not want to pick the tenant. I would want to stay out of that process. That way I know that the property management company is going by all of the fair housing laws, that they're meeting all of those marks. And I would not want the information or be involved in the choice of who I'm placing in my home, because I would never want to break a law or be biased. So, and some owners don't know, like, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, right.
And sometimes they find out when they call me. They're like, well, can you just get 5 applicants and let me see them? And I'm like, absolutely not.
That's the last thing you actually want to have happen.
Yeah, no. You can't do that. Or they'll be like, can I keep a key to the home? And I'm like, absolutely not. I need the key. Just let me have the key. No, sometimes they don't want to give the key, but I explained, once I explained to them why, then they're like, oh yeah, of course. We have a safe and all this other stuff where we keep a copy of the keys. But if something were to happen, especially something criminal, if somebody asked me well, who has a copy of the key? Right. And I knew the owner definitely has a copy of the key because he wouldn't give it to me. You know what I mean? That would be a situation. So, and that, I'm sure it's come up somewhere, somehow.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. And when I open the office, we go through a very rigorous screening process to even just
open
be able to open the office.
I'm sure. Yeah. And your background is fully vetted, right?
Yes. We have been screened, and it happens quite frequently. I think once a year or something. I have to go around with a video camera or my phone and video the office, show my locked file cabinet, show how the front door's locked, show where my keys are kept. So it's to be able to vet tenants, we also are vetted for, are you handling everything correctly and have everything locked up and, protecting tenants' information, owners' information, and things like that.
And yes, and then the next service we offer and this is the biggest one in my opinion, is the maintenance service. And that is so you don't get the call in the middle of the night about the toilet. We require reserve for maintenance emergencies. That's also a big concern for investors. What kind of money do I need? What should I have? What should I keep away for my investment property? And $500 is a really good amount to keep it with your property management company. That way, I can replace a toilet or call the plumbing company, or, if something comes up, I can send somebody out there. And that's all in our management agreement. And we all have conversations about expectations and what to expect and, what they can expect from us and how everything works. And some people like to be very hands-on, and we're able to cater to that. We don't have a problem with that. Some people like to know exactly what's going on every work order. And we're like, okay, here you go. Let me know what you want to do. But yeah, and that's fine. That's fun too. We also help with make-readies. So if you buy a property or you have a property that somebody has moved out of or you inherited, we will come by. I just did last week. I went to somebody's house and I said, okay, well, if you do this, this, and this, not big things at all, just, like maybe fix the drywall here and just clean, and I think you'd be ready for a tenant. I'll go in, assess the property and say, this is what needs to be done to get it rent ready, to get that maximum rent. And they'll be like, well, can you help me? Can you do this? I'm out of town, or I'm busy, or I got to go be with family. And 100% yes, we will do all the maintenance. We will coordinate those make-readies. We have a list of vendors who are very capable. They're licensed, they're insured, and they're professional, because I wouldn't work with anyone who isn't. So, that a lot of my time is spent with maintenance, doing maintenance, walking these homes and seeing like what needs to be done. It needs to be cleaned or wiped down. Or earlier this week, someone contacted us, and I went to a home the same day. He called and said, hey, these have been on the market for a few months and they're not selling. He has them for sale, or had them for sale. He was like, they're not going. And at this point, I think I just need it to be a rental so I can get them filled and cash flow and all that good stuff. Can you go there and tell me what you think the rent would be? And I was like, of course. I went the same day, and there were definitely some things that needed to be done. And some of them are just aesthetics, like the staging.
Oh, yeah.
So the staging was not all the way set up. And there were some boxes that you could see through the window in one room, but it was the front room. And I was like, well, if somebody stopped by, if there was a drive-by, I would just assume that somebody has already moved in here, or they're in the process of moving in. You know what I mean? Because of bad staging or improper staging. So those things are important.
Yeah.
You got to think of what are these people going to think? And you really got to step aside out of your own perspective and gain the perspective of the tenant or the homeowner. And that's what I go in and do. I'm like, okay, what could they complain about? I go all the way around the room. What can they complain about? And so I try to jump in front of it so we don't have all of these complaints, and it will be move-in ready. I went there, and like I said, there were boxes because of the staging. And then I was like, where's the thermostat?
You couldn't find?
No, and I wondered why it was hot in there. So I was like, that hot? I was like, people don't really, people don't really like to, walk in a warm home.
Yeah.
That's like stepping into a warm pool. It's just not good, So he was like, oh, well, I need to replace the HVAC, but I was going to do that if somebody bought it or blah, 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 or I was going to take it off the price.
Right?
Yeah. I'm like, well, nobody wants to walk in and sweat. Nobody's going to have a good time in here. You got to really set it up, set the mood.
Yeah.
And the refrigerator opened towards a window. Because it was a beautiful home, very large windows, but the refrigerator opened towards the window. Imagine having to put groceries up in that. There's no way. I'd be complaining the first week. And I don't want to get that call. So let's go ahead and because you can change those. I'm like, let's go ahead and fix that door.
Yeah.
Let's get it to open the other way because I don't want to call about that. And I would call. I would call about it. I can't put my groceries in here.
Yeah, right.
It's the little things. And I take a lot of time. And we've been doing it such a long time that we kind of know the majority of my calls after somebody does move in. If I do get a maintenance call, it's majority would be my toilet is wiggly, like when I sit on it.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
And I'm like, well, I don't sit on the toilet and test it out before you move in, so that would make sense, And I warn them now.
It's one of the rare things that you don't check out.
I do not check that out. I'm not going to lie. I don't do that. But I warn them now. After so many years of going through it, when I tell you that's the number one call, most frequent call after somebody first moves in, it's my toilet's wiggly.
Yeah.
So I just warn them. I'm like, hey, any maintenance issues, you let me know because I'm not sitting on this toilet to test it out. And we all get a good laugh, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's true. I'm like, if it's wiggly, you just call me and I'll send maintenance.
Well, is there anything else that we need to cover?
I think most investors have a fear of what am I going to do wrong because they don't know what they don't know. And they're afraid to do something that is wrong. And we're kind of there just to guide them through and hold their hand and make sure that, we are doing everything that we can do and we're following the law and we're protecting your investment and we're doing the proper maintenance. We're doing your seasonal care. You're getting your accounting and reporting, and we're very transparent. And so a bad management company can kind of tarnish you a little bit and make you iffy and scare you.
Yeah.
And then horror stories will
That's
also
true.
scare you. Yeah. So sometimes they hear from family members or friends that, oh my gosh, I'm never going to do this again because this happened. And things do happen, but mostly they don't. So, just go ahead and do it. That's what I tell everybody. I'm like, I know you're scared. I know it's kind of risky, but so is getting in your car every day. So let's make you an investor. And it's a good retirement plan, if you do it right and you stick to it in 10, 15 years, you could be retired with cash flow. And especially if you have multiple properties too. If they want the portfolio to grow, they'll need somebody to manage it and help them with that. Help them with taxes too. That's a biggie.
Taxes, yeah. Something you said about transparency, and when I purchased PMI Chattanooga, that was one of my main things that I wanted to focus on is, I had heard a lot about property management companies maybe have hidden fees. We get a lot of calls like, what are your fees? And then maybe they were hit with fees they weren't expecting. So I'm very transparent from the get-go. This is what you will be getting from us. If you choose maintenance service, this is what you will be charged. Leasing fees, this is what it's all laid out very specifically in the management agreement. So we are not going to blindside you with anything that is hidden or more than what they had anticipated. Sometimes, things do happen, but we are on the phone speaking with the owners, and if it was a big maintenance issue, we're getting 3 bids. We're making the owners aware and letting them make that decision. It's not something that we're just going to do on our own without discussing with our owners. So transparency is a really big thing for me, and just being the owner of PMI Chattanooga, I want to make sure that that's out there and that everybody realizes that all companies don't just hide fees and surprise people every month on their financials.
Yeah.
So it does happen.
It does happen, and that gets a little scary for some investors sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and communication. That is everything. We've tried different strategies and we've gone about things different ways to try to figure out what works and what doesn't, growing pains of a small company. because we both came from bigger company backgrounds, more
Sure.
corporate. So we did have a lot of structure. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we realized that communication is key with a real person, no matter how much AI you have, no matter,
How
virtual
true.
assistants or things like that. Like, people like to talk to somebody in office who can help them immediate, attention and satisfaction. And that's what we do. And if you do choose to use PMI Chattanooga as your property management company, I would be your property manager and I would be your point of contact. And you wouldn't have to speak to, a bunch of other people. You would speak to me. And then if I couldn't help you, you could speak to Andrea. And then we have an office manager, Emily, who she takes all of the calls. She looks for text messages for like tenants and stuff. So we're very hands-on. We are PMI Chattanooga, and what you see is what you get.
Well, it's evident that you guys do a good job. What would be a way for someone who's listening to get in touch with you? How would they contact you?
There's several ways. Obviously, our phone number, 423-708-6407. We also have a great website, PMIChattanooga.com. You can, if you just want to look around on our website and see what all we offer, it kind of makes it maybe a little less intimidating. You can get a free rental analysis on your property. Just type it in and it'll tell you what your property's worth that you may be thinking of buying or that you own and you may be needing to sell.
And then if you want to get to know us even better, you can connect with us on Facebook. We do a lot of videos and posts there. We advertise all of our properties. We're on Instagram. And then we just started YouTube. And I don't know. It'll probably be pretty silly, so you might want to
Anything
follow.
somebody should look for specifically on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube to find you?
PMI Chattanooga.
PMI Chattanooga.
PMI Chattanooga.
Yeah.
Well, it's so great having you both here today, Brooke and Andrea. Thanks for being
Thank
on the
you.
show.
Thanks
you
for
so
having
much.
us.
And if you are interested in becoming a landlord or just buying a rental property, an investment house or investment property of any sort, really, you can certainly speak to Brooke or Andrea or myself. We are all agents with Epique Realty, and I'm Blake Watson. My mobile phone is 423-315-1815, and my brokerage office phone is 888-893-3537. You can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn as Blake Watson and on Instagram as Rock and Roll Blake. My website is @homechattanooga.com. And if this podcast has been helpful to you, as it certainly has been to me, well, please share this podcast with a friend and follow this podcast so you won't miss an episode. And until next time, I wish you all the best in your real estate journey.